All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the What You Don't Hear podcast. Ross here as always, and it is time for another 15-minute Friday. And boy, oh freaking boy, am I excited for this one because a different guest for this 15-minute Friday. Ray, welcome back to the pod.
Well, thanks for having me, buddy.
I appreciate you being down to do these, and if I could say this, I think there is not something that you and I could do together that is made more specifically for you and I to do together than a 15-minute Friday.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Love it.
See what I'm saying?
Yes. It's tight, it's concise, it's provocative, it's sexy.
Ooh,
and those
sexy.
are the most important things.
Yes.
Especially, look, it's got to be provocative because it gets the people going.
You're right.
So
You're right.
It's what the people want.
I'm going to reel them out there. So, yeah, the goal with these 15-minute Fridays is, of course, if they're listening to it on a Friday, send them into the weekend with some actionable advice they can do something with, right?
Happy Friday, y'all.
Happy Friday, y'all. Or whenever you're listening, why didn't you listen to this on Friday?
Yeah, happy any day that it is, y'all.
Happy? I like that. I like
Yes.
that. Welcome to a 15-minute Friday, but welcome to a 15-minute, however you're
day it
spending
is.
this 15-minute. No, but I super appreciate you being down to come back and do a 15-minute Friday. And a couple of them, if I'm lucky, at some point, maybe we can get a couple out of you.
Let's do it.
So let's jump right into it because I know it's going to be hard for you and I. These 15-minute Fridays are hard in general to get everything down compact and concise. But I think you and I, for sure, we're going to have to reel ourselves in if not
15 minutes.
jumping all over the place.
That's
So, would you like to introduce what the subject of this 15-minute Friday is?
Which one do we want to do?
I think let's do clarity.
Clarity.
Let's talk about clarity.
The importance of clarity.
The importance of clarity, more in specific, clarity and what you want out of being a musician. The clarity in what your band is trying to do, right?
Yeah, where I see clarity, the importance of clarity rear itself the most obviously is in how a lack of it can affect a band at crucial junctions, right? Like, so for example, you figure out whether or not a band was good at having clarifying conversations at points like when they're starting to tour a lot, or when they're starting to,
Yes.
maybe take on brand deals, or when you're at these sort of like flux points where the band is going into a different mode. They're starting to get to the next stage, and then you see like, oh, like so-and-so has an awesome 9-to-5 job. He's not about to give that up to start this,
Yes.
low to no income touring thing. It's like, okay,
Right.
well, look, we probably should have clarified the expectations and the commitment level, like maybe day one.
100%.
Like, what do you want to? Because then it's like it sucks. I've seen it happen a couple times where the whole thing, the band is on this awesome upswing, and then they get to that flux point of like, okay, now we're going to start touring, and then two of the members, a lot of the time they're like the keystone members, are like, hey, but we got like families and kids and we cannot do that. And then the whole thing, then those members leave and the whole thing doesn't have the momentum that it had. And it sucks because it's like, if they could have had that conversation early on, maybe they could have successfully navigated to that next stage.
Yes.
And it could have been a much better situation for everybody.
100%. And so, as you can see, I have quietly started the stopwatch here. So we've got our 15 minutes up and running because I knew we were going to jump straight into this, right?
Yes.
And I think there's so much that goes into that. And you brought up so many good points. Touring is a huge one because I have seen so many bands be at absolute odds when the actual touring opportunities start to show up, right? Or even if it's the commitment of like, hey, we need to start DIYing it, right? We need to knock out some weekends. We need to get some heads. We need to, you know what I mean? Like, we need to see what our count is in these towns. Like, we need to make the towns. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, you've got that like one or two members who are like, whoa, wait. You want me to, hold on, I got to take off work? For how long? 4 days? Dude, come on.
Right.
That should have been a conversation a long time ago. Not just like, hey, dude, do you play bass? Do you play guitar? Do you play drums? You want to join the band? We need a member.
Right.
Sure. Go ahead and join. No, why aren't bands having conversations about why each member is doing music?
Right.
You know what I mean?
From from what I see, it's like, okay, dating. It would be like on day one being like, what are your expectations for this relationship, right? I think it can feel kind of heavy for some people.
Yeah.
But honestly, like my wife and I had that conversation like day one. Like, look, we're not messing around. Like, what do we want out of this thing? Like, do you want it to just be a casual thing? I'm down for that.
Right.
But if you want it to be something real, let's have that conversation. And it can feel kind of weird on a first date, but you cut through all the crap. You're just like, look, if she was just like, I wanted this to be a casual thing, I just want to do this casual thing, and I'm probably going to go find something better later, but right now I need something to rub up against and you're here. Then I'm like, okay, that's your level of commitment, and I can adjust myself around that level of commitment.
Yes.
And if, really we were both like, look, I'm looking for something serious. If you don't want to like think about getting married, I'm not into it. And then we were able to build a relationship that is centered around that commitment to each other, which means it's a very different type of relationship. Our fights were different because we knew that we were going to try to be together forever. It wasn't like we're going to break up next week. And just the whole relationship and the dynamic is different. So you need to have that conversation early on about, what is this thing? How much are you committed to it? What are you willing to give up? Here's what I'm willing to give up. And here's what I want.
Exactly.
This is what you want, and that's great. And having that conversation early on can really help guide that relationship and that project in a direction that is open and honest and lacks huge surprises like, oh, I wanted something serious, you wanted something casual, and now we're having a big old problem.
Bands do that so often, even when it comes to, so let's put the touring part aside, right? Check that off the list. It's, it even comes down to like, what do you want out of the band in general? So not something specific like touring, like, oh man, I don't want to go on the road, or I can't call off work, or I don't want to, be crammed in a van or whatever. Like, in general, why aren't more bands having the conversation with each other of, hey, what's our goal here? Because you have members sometimes that are like, I want to jam in local bars on the weekends, and if you don't even dare ask me to pitch in $100 for a photo shoot, do not.
Right.
And then you have other ones that are like, if this isn't treated as a business, I'm pissed.
Right.
Why aren't those, like, why do you think those aren't conversations? And I know you use the relationship, comparison a little bit, but like, especially something like a band that, it has the possibility of really being a business. It's a team thing. It's it's not just like, oh yeah, hey, we're jamming with some people and these are my dudes and I don't know, we make some sounds. Like, it can be. Right. Which is, again, part of the clarity of what do you want out of it? Why do you think there's such a lack of communication between like the band members who are like the band dads and the ones that are like hard to get to even show up to practice? I
think it's an aversion to having difficult conversations. Like, because if everybody's all in, that's an easy conversation. That's me and my wife, right? We're both all in, we've got a nice enough track record. Like, let's do this thing for real. But if I said, I want to be all in, and she's like, I want to do something casual, that's a potential conflict point, and people will do almost anything to avoid telling people things they don't want to hear. So if you're in that initial like band meeting and like everybody's like, yeah, I'm all in, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then that one member's like, I don't want to be the guy who said, yeah, I don't really want to do that. Yeah. I just want to play on the bars. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to play bars on the weekend. That's awesome. Exactly. Very cool. Yeah. But you have to make sure that, like, look, everybody's signing up for the same thing, because that will save you so much heartbreak. I mean, it's not even just like it can hurt the business. It can hurt the relationships between the members. Like, personally, these people who are like your close buds, you can come to resent each other simply because you tried to avoid having the difficult conversation at the very beginning. I have, and I'm sure as you have, I've directly witnessed that in so many different situations. Again, which is of course why I wanted us to talk about it. But it's like it's strange to me, and I know that people are built differently, right? I'm the type of person, just as you are, the example you gave, I'm the type of person who will be open and honest and direct right from the start. I'll be transparent on what I
am interested in or not interested in, what I can provide you, what I can't provide you, whatever, right? In business, creative, relationships, friendships, whatever. So I understand that people at their core, they're just different, right? They communicate differently. I understand that. And it is still, even knowing that, it's still so strange that I've witnessed bands break up because they get like a label offer and some of the guys are like, hell yeah, let's do it, all in, like, you know, we're doing it. And then somebody's like, hold on, like, what does that mean? Like,
what are they even offering? Like, what do they have of value?
What are they offering? Like, oh, they'll fund stuff for us? I mean, like, dude, why can't we just, like, you have GarageBand, why can't we just record? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
well, you need to have clarity in values, common values. Do we have similar philosophies of business, right? Like, do we all agree that staying indie is the best thing for us? Or do we all agree enough that we're willing to do it that way? Or the flip side, are we dead set on trying to find a label? That's a conversation that you need to have. You need to have clarity, not just in expectations, but in also core values. Do we believe the same thing? I know we make good art together, but do we agree on how this thing should function and how it goes to interact with the broader world around us?
Yes. You have to be able to work as a team. I know that word gets thrown around so much, especially in the music industry, of, oh, these are my brothers and sisters, this is my team, this is my family. Especially that it gets thrown around in a cool line right before a breakdown hits. You know what I'm saying, brother?
I love my friends.
So, but that term gets thrown around so much. But it's like, I think bands need to really, really open themselves up to having those conversations and figuring those things out, even if it's not, okay, maybe it's not the very first time the possible new guitarist comes over for practice. But I do think it's, maybe a couple practices in, they're going to fit pretty well. And, well, you've got that tour offer coming up in a couple months and you haven't exactly brought it up to them yet.
Right. Well, and I think one thing that is useful to consider is that there's this dichotomy, right? This dichotomy of you don't need to, but it helps if you love and respect and want, you want to be liked by the people in your band, but you also need to be able to speak your truth even if it might anger them, right? So there's this balance of, like, loving and caring about the people that are in this thing for you, but also being able to tell them something that they might not want to hear, because the truth is that is so much better for your long-term relationship with that person versus just telling them what they want to hear in that moment, even if it's not your truth.
Yes. And again, it goes back to, like, I've seen too many bands split or members quit because they get, none of that's ever talked about or brought up or even thought about until the moment where a decision has to be made. There's no proactiveness to how bands plan amongst each other in what they want to do. Right? Everything's just so reaction based.
Right. And the problem with that is that you end up never getting ahead of the problems, right? You end up spending all of your time putting out these quick fires, and you can't strategize. You can't strategize because everything is happening in real time. You're just out on the battlefield, no coordination, no nothing, and you're expecting that, like, somehow you're going to make it out, and that's not the reality of it. The reality is that if you're going into, I guess we can talk going into battle, we're talking about marriage and, war. I guess those are probably not as different as maybe I'm implying, but, like, when you go into battle, you don't go in being like, I don't know, we'll see what happens. You have plan A, you've got plan B, you've got plan C, D, and then what happens in each of those plans. And there's different branches. Those are all done ahead of time because smart people have found out that's the best way to operate. Be able to anticipate problems ahead of time, not simply reacting while you're in the moment, distracted by maybe your emotions and maybe the excitement or maybe the anger or the sadness or the resentment. It allows you to make logical decisions about how to operate when the shit hits the fan. And then when the shit hits the fan, you're like, all right, this is what's happening, plan A. There's no emotional, it's just execution at that point. And that's the ideal situation where look, you're going through tough stuff, right? Every band, every person is going to go through tough stuff. But if you already have an established operating system for how to navigate through those situations, you're going to be much better off than if you just try to get through it accidentally, which is what so many bands do.
Yes. Dude, I honestly don't know what I can add to that. You just laid it down. We're about to hit our 15 minutes, and you just laid it down. You threw the smackdown on there.
The smackdown.
Through the smackdown.
RVD.
Back here on a 15-minute Friday. No, but for real, though, I think that everything that you just shared, I think makes a lot of sense. And I think that there is this huge lack of what this subject is about. There's a huge lack of clarity amongst bands, whether they want to do it for business or they just want to do it for the pleasure and the emotion of making music.
Which is great.
That's fine.
Wonderful.
Still have clarity in that, to know that everybody else that is joining and being shared in your experience in your project is on that same level of understanding. Right. Stop letting there be that weird elephant in the room that you're creating.
Yeah.
And then that elephant causes a ton of destruction when a reaction is needed. Right. You know what I mean? And a decision has to be made of, are we going on tour? Are we signing with this label? Are we paying for promos? Are we paying for recordings?
Where's the money coming from?
Exactly. Like, are you willing? And that's even a subject, we're hitting our 15 minutes. That's not even a subject that we talked about, was like, is everyone's willingness to spend money and invest into this project? Has that been talked about?
Right.
And why has it not?
And the dispersion of like workload, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's huge.
Are you willing to do, are you willing to be the primary songwriter? Are you willing to record? Are you willing to be responsible for content creation? Are you willing to be Mr. Moneybags and fund this thing? Like, having a conversation about like who is doing what. Like, when you start a business of any type, you should have an understanding of the job descriptions of the people, because then you can make sure that like everybody's like core function is complementary to everybody else. And you don't see that a lot with bands. Usually with bands, you see one or two people who are just doing everything. Yep. And that's unsustainable in the long run.
Yes. Boom. Another one. You just laid down another hot one-liner.
Smackdown.
I guess it wasn't a one-liner. It was more of like a dope monologue or something.
It depends on how small the text is.
That's true. Make it real. I'll fit it all into one line and some promotional materials. I think that does it for another 15-minute Friday. Honestly, Ray, I appreciate you being down to do these. Like I said, there are things in the subjects that we're going to talk about on these 15-minute Fridays that I feel like we could riff on for an hour to 2 hours straight.
That was a whole podcast episode. We just didn't let it keep going.
Exactly.
That'll happen next time.
It could have kept going. So if you want anybody to find you around the internet, do you want that? Tell them where they can hit you up at.
I'm on the internet sometimes. If you want to find me on the internet, I am sometimes on Instagram.
Is that your promotional voice?
That's my promotional voice. I heard that like people find Southern accents a little bit more trustworthy, and I am nothing if not trustworthy. Is that how? Anyway, really? I'm on the internet. It's at if you want me on Instagram, I am at I'm the Band-Dad. And if you go on Facebook, you'll find me. I am Raymond Rasmusson. If you try to become my personal friend on Facebook, you might get in. You probably won't, but you might. Depends on how cool your profile photo is. But otherwise, you can find my page and, hop in on there. We can have a nice little chat.
There it is. Remember what we said on Ray's full episode, folks. If you want access to be his personal friend on Facebook, tell him the podcast sent you.
Yes.
That's all you got to do.
That's all you got to do.
That's the magical key. But Ray, thank you for doing this 15 to 20 minute episode, whatever it is. They go back and forth a lot. But, sir, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, buddy.